I met Ethan in college when I was just 20. He was charming, funny, and had the kind of smile that could make you believe in love at first sight. He wasn't just my boyfriend, he was my best friend. We shared everything, our dreams, fears, and ambitions. When he proposed to me at 24, I said yes without hesitation. It was the kind of love I thought would last forever. We got married in a small ceremony with family and close friends. Our life was good, stable. A year later, I gave birth to our daughter, Haley. She became our entire world, and for a while, it felt like we were the perfect family. But then Zach came into our lives. Zach was Ethan's childhood friend, someone he had reconnected with a year into our marriage. He was handsome, charismatic, and had an effortless way of making people like him. But what stood out the most was his relationship with Ethan. They were inseparable. Zach started spending more time at our house, sometimes even staying overnight. At first, I didn't mind. Ethan had always been sociable, and having an old friend around seemed harmless. But something changed. Ethan started pulling away from me. Conversations that once lasted for hours became brief and distant. The warmth in his eyes, the affection in his touch, it all started to fade. I told myself it was just a phase, that maybe he was stressed about work or adjusting to fatherhood. But deep down, an unsettling feeling took root. One night, I woke up to find Ethan missing from our bed. I tiptoed down the hall, careful not to wake Haley. As I reached the living room, I saw them, Ethan and Zach, sitting too close, their hands brushing, their voices hushed and filled with something I couldn't quite place. When Ethan noticed me, he pulled away as if I had caught him in something forbidden. Something was wrong, and I needed to find out what. I didn't confront Ethan right away. Instead, I watched. I noticed how his gaze lingered on Zach a second too long, how his voice softened when he spoke to him. I noticed how he avoided intimacy with me, how he flinched when I touched him. Then, one evening, I overheard a conversation I was never meant to hear. "I can't keep living a lie." Ethan's voice was raw, almost desperate. "You have to," Zach whispered. "Your family." "I know," Ethan cut him off, "but I don't love her the way I'm supposed to." The words hit me like a wrecking ball. I had known something was wrong, but I never expected this. My husband, my Ethan, was in love with another man. I felt the walls closing in. My body trembled as I stepped into the room. Ethan's face drained of color when he saw me. Zach looked away, guilt written all over his features. "How long?" My voice was barely a whisper. Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. "How long, Ethan?" I demanded, my heart pounding in my chest. "A long time," he finally admitted, his voice broken. "Before I met you." The world around me shattered. He had never truly been mine. I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand why he had married me. But I already knew the answer. His family, his need to fit into the world's expectations. And I had been the perfect cover. I left the room before I could break any further. The days that followed were a blur of pain and confusion. I couldn't look at Ethan without feeling betrayed. I couldn't look at Zach without feeling like an outsider in my own marriage. We fought. I yelled. He begged for my understanding. But how do you understand something that has destroyed the foundation of your life? We decided to separate. There was no other way. But there was Haley, and she was the only thing that kept me from walking away completely. We arranged for shared custody, but the process was excruciating. Every time I saw Ethan, I felt the weight of what we had lost. Every time I saw Zach, I felt the reminder of what I could never compete with. But then something changed. At first, co-parenting was awkward and strained. But as time passed, we learned to navigate it. Ethan was still a good father, and no matter how much he had hurt me, I couldn't take that away from him. I watched him with Haley, the way he adored her, the way he made sure she never felt the shift in our family. And for the first time in months, I saw the Ethan I once knew. It was strange, learning to let go while still being tied to someone. But the hardest part was learning to forgive. It took years, but one day I woke up and realized I no longer carried the anger. Ethan and I had become something else, not lovers, not quite best friends, but something in between. He had found peace in his truth, and despite the pain, I had found my own kind of peace too. Zach was still in his life, though things between us remained distant. I had learned to accept it. Some things were not meant to be understood, only accepted. And then one day, Ethan apologized not just for the betrayal, but for the years he had taken from me. I never meant to hurt you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I know, I whispered, and for the first time, I truly meant it. Life moves on. It doesn't always give you what you want, but sometimes it gives you what you need. And I had Haley. That was enough. Years later, I stood in the audience as Haley graduated from high school. Ethan was beside me, his hands clasped together as he beamed with pride. Zach was there too. They had built a life together, one that was honest and real. And I had built my own. I had found love again, different but just as real. As Haley walked across the stage, I glanced at Ethan. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and in that silent exchange, we understood something profound. We had hurt each other, but we had also healed. And that was enough.